The Holy Gospel is according to Mark, the 6th chapter. The apostles gathered around Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught. He said to them, "Come away to a deserted place all by yourselves and rest a while." For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. And they went away in the boat to a deserted place by themselves. Now many saw them going and recognized them, and they hurried there on foot from all the towns and arrived ahead of them. As he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. When they had crossed over, they came to the land at Gennesaret and moored the boat. When they got out of the boat, people at once recognized him and rushed about that whole region and began to bring the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into villages or cities or farms, they laid the sick in the marketplace and begged him that they might touch even the fringe of his cloak. And all who touched it were healed. This is the gospel of our Lord. John is dead, and those who have been sent out have returned full of excitement and stories about what they have accomplished. I envision an encampment somewhere in the countryside near Capernaum, with people milling about everywhere. The apostles, those who were sent, excited and energized by their success, wound up like overtired children, eager to ride their adrenaline buzz onto the next big adventure. Some in this frenetic camp are likely saddened at the death of John, maybe even frightened that his fate might be theirs if they're not careful. And there's just so much going on that Jesus and disciples have no time to sit and share a meal. And we all know how important table fellowship is for Jesus and his followers. Jesus senses that the apostles need a rest upon their return, so he takes them away to a deserted place. By its nature, wilderness can also be chaotic, though, and it's not a place where one generally goes to share a meal. The wilderness is often a place of hunger, but at least it's quiet. In the Gospel of Mark, deserted places are important. Symbolically, they are where a community goes when in flight for protection and to await deliverance. The prophetic movements of John and Jesus began in the wilderness. The wilderness is the opposite of the temple. Jesus often goes to a deserted place to pray. And interestingly enough, when it becomes too dangerous for him to be in a town because he's recognizable to the authorities, Jesus retreats to deserted places. But the crowds follow to meet him there, in those marginal places. And we see this clearly this morning in this lesson. The place may be deserted, but it is not unknown to the people. Recognizing Jesus and his followers as they attempt to get away, people from all the cities run ahead to meet them. And these are people in need of something. Jesus characterizes them as sheep without a shepherd. Moses said the same as he handed over leadership of the Israelites to Joshua. Some of these people may be followers of John, looking for a new leader. Some may be citizens of Rome, perhaps disillusioned by the leadership of Herod Antipas. And certainly some are there looking for healing, drawn by the knowledge of the wonders that Jesus and the apostles have accomplished. Still others might just be curious about this healer and those who follow him. Jesus looks upon this crowd and has compassion for them. Jesus and his followers are most certainly in need of a rest, but the needs of the crowd come first. This will not be a therapeutic trip for him and the disciples. There is work to be done. Ministry is constant. But Jesus has compassion. Compassion is an emotional response to the suffering of others that stimulates a desire to help. Unlike empathy, in which we are aware of the emotional state of others, try to understand that emotion and to sit with it, compassion is empathy joined with altruism. Jesus is most certainly mourning the loss of John, like some in that crowd, and he can empathize with their emotions around the loss. But he sees them as leaderless, so he does something about it. He begins to teach. And then there's this gap in this morning's lesson. And in case you were wondering what gets skipped, it's the Markan version of the feeding of the 5,000, the one where Jesus tells the disciples to feed them. But the disciples are skeptical. But Jesus assures them they have an abundance of food, 5 loaves and 2 fish, and all are fed with 12 baskets left over. The deserted places, it turns out, are where God provides nourishment. In the second part of this morning's lesson, we hear that Jesus and his disciples arrive at Gennesaret, but we've skipped another story, the well-known story of Jesus walking on water. When they left that deserted place, they were headed for Bethsaida, not Gennesaret. But when they land, again, the crowds recognize Jesus and bring their sick to him for healing. Why is it, I wonder, that the crowds recognize Jesus, and while just a short while before in the boat, the disciples did not? As Jesus came to them in the storm that blew them off course, they thought him a ghost. Yet in this place that they were not planning on going, people from all walks of life bring their loved ones to the marketplaces, seeking only to touch the hem of Jesus' garment to be healed. The garment is not magic. It is not the fringe that heals. It is the faith in Jesus' authority over illness that heals. So what does this disjointed text teach us? I think it encourages us to look carefully at transitions. There's a lot going on in the liminal spaces in our lives and in this story. Pay attention to the tiny details that sometimes go unnoticed. This text recognizes the need for rest, for time away in the quiet. And it also acknowledges that sometimes life gets in the way. It assures us that even when rest seems unattainable, Jesus is there to feed us in our wilderness, to lead us when we are lost. And this text speaks of compassion, something we as Christians are called to exhibit for others. Compassion is deeply felt. It's not just the window dressing of good works. When we are compassionate, we deeply feel the pain of our neighbor. We enter into that place, acknowledging the suffering, dwelling with them in their painful reality, and then we act in love to try to alleviate their pain and address the cause. We ask, "What do you need?" Listen carefully to their answer and act in love to respond without judgment. Jesus does not need to ask the crowd if they desire help. He just helps because he knows what they need. He does not discern if they are worthy of his healing. He just heals because he has compassion for them. He has compassion for us. When we are leaderless or blown off course in our own lives, too busy to stop and eat, there is hope because we are loved no matter what, no matter where. The grace of God will find us and is for us. Thanks be to God.